Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University. And welcome back to 10 at 10, episode 132. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partner Sprocket Innovation in Paducah, and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. So this week on 10 at 10, last week we talked about stories in the news. This week we're actually going to talk about a story in the news and really kind of in the context of what that really is about with cybersecurity. And it came out this week that in his words, the world's most famous former hacker passed away. Kevin Mitnick was the first real, I guess, famous might be the best way to say it, hacker. And here's a picture of him back when he was arrested and one that's more recent. Um, but back in 1988, 1995, I guess another arrest warrant was issued for him. But back in the late 80s and 90s, he was a famous hacker that broke into IBM and phone companies and a lot of different companies, big tech companies, and was arrested. Went to prison for a year, came back out, then was on the run for a while. Anyway, ultimately, what's important to note about him is not that he was a hacker, which actually, I mean, he's famous because he was a hacker, but it's the way that he did it. And, back at that time, hacking wasn't hacking like we think of today. And I think that's a important distinction. Now, the what he did and kind of what he trailblazed is important to know. And actually, after 2000, March 2nd, 2000, he testified to the U.S. Senate Committee on Governmental Affairs, and this is a lot of quote, but pay attention to the line that's the area that's underlined. Um, and and what I think is important in that section is that after he was arrested, after he was caught, after all of this illegal activity, he made this statement. He testified, talked about his experiences, and he said, "I felt kind of like as an explorer on these computer systems." Later, he would say, actually, he was doing it for the intellectual curiosity. I can remember around that time, maybe a little before that, I was in middle school. My uncle lived next door to me, and he would come over on my computer and do something to it, and I would try to figure out what did he do, and then I would want to go back and do it to his computer. And it was a great way for me to learn about computers. And it was fun, teasing each other. We didn't do anything harmful. Frankly, back then, you didn't really have any, financial or personal data on these computers because that you just didn't back then. But um, it was you really did have that. We're exploring these systems. Now he was arrested for stealing $1 million worth of information off of one of the systems. Um, so is this right? Did he embellish a little? Who knows? Well, he does. But my point is his primary motivation back then was not necessarily to rob and steal and to with the criminal components that we have today. I several years ago went to a conference and we were in a room of 30 or 40 people. It was a small breakout session and he was our speaker. And I'll never forget, I've shared this story. Actually, I shared this story to a group of students this week. He asked for a volunteer during his presentation, and he didn't get any volunteers. And finally, a marketing person, a non-technical person, raised their hand and volunteered. And she went forward, and first she gave her married name, which she had been married for a week, and he didn't bring anything up about her. And then she said, "Well, my maiden name was, you know, whatever it was." And all of a sudden, he had her on the computer screen her address, actually every address she'd ever lived at, her mother's maiden name, her birthday, and all of her personal information was readily available as soon as he had her name. Now, for her, it was a bit misleading because she just got married, but what he did was using legal tools online. He didn't do anything illegal, but he knew how to use all of these tools. But at the core of what Kevin Mitnick was is, and he would be the one to say this, is that he was a social engineer. And he might have been the greatest social engineer of all time. And that is, I think, what's really important about I guess a lesson that we can learn from him is the dangers of social engineering. And actually, from his book, Ghost in the Wires, that was one of his books that he wrote. There's actually a few things that we can learn that we have to be super careful of. And these 4 steps are the lessons from his book. And these 4 steps are what people are still using today to gain access to your business organization. First of all, research your target, know until you know their weakness. Research your target. Think about all of the things that you have on social media today. Now, they didn't have this back, in the 80s and 90s when he was doing this, but we make it even easier for the adversary today. Think about what you're showing on social media. Think about what you're showing on the back of your car, your bumper stickers, your your Trump or Biden sticker, your family by stick figures, your what's your license plate say? All of these different things are sharing information to these people that are trying to gain access to us. Um, but social media, I mean, we have it out there on Facebook for the world to see, or on Twitter or on Instagram. Um, so once they know your weakness, then they create a plausible pretext to gain your confidence. So, what's the pretext mean? Pretext is, what is the reason I'm going to talk to you that hides the real reason, or contact you, whatever that contact looks like, that hides the real reason for my contact. So, I'm going to talk to you about dogs because I know you love dogs, instead of actually asking for your password right off the bat. Um, that happens, and that's what Kevin Mitnick was so good at. Offer your target something they want in return for the act you want them to perform. Ultimately, get to the point that you can do, if you give me this, I'll give you that. And if you do steps 1 and 2 well enough, then um, they're going to be happy to help. If you talk about um, how busy you are with somebody, oh man, if you would just, if you could help me with this, then, I can give you that. And people want to be helpful. You gain their confidence. They want to be helpful. They want to help a friend. They want to help a colleague. Um, and it happens. And then finally, his last step was to reaffirm the pretext that gain the confidence of your target to ensure future usefulness. So not only did he talk about how to get them to do what you wanted to the first time, but he also talked about how do you go back and be able to use them a second time. And that's this focus, or these steps are steps that, yes, that Kevin Mitnick wrote about, but these are steps that um, are as applicable today as they were when he wrote this book 15 years ago. Might not have been quite 15 years ago, but when he wrote his book, all of these steps are still applicable, and the bad guy, the adversary, is still using these steps today. So, if we can take anything away from the life of Kevin Mitnick, then I really think what he has shown, and he actually even started a company to help address some of these concerns, is the social engineering threat, the human factor, which are our employees, our users. The threat of their manipulation is as strong now as it ever has been, And that's something that we want to keep a lookout for. And we want to make sure that we spend the right amount of time on security awareness training and protecting our employees from these types of adversaries. Hope you found this interesting. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you back here next week on 10 at 10. Thank you.